Hi, welcome to Awkwardly Awesome. My name is Regan, and I'm chatting here with Logan again tonight. And we're going to be talking about mind control and propaganda, and how it's used, and how you can spot it, where it's found, which is pretty much everywhere. And yeah, it's one of my pet subjects. I started into this study by watching Bert the Turtle's Duck and Cover video from 1951 when I was probably in my early 30s, and it just there was a lot of messages that I saw coming across at that time, for the people in that era. And I kept on looking at different videos. I looked at how to spot the communist, and is he a homosexual? And these were all PSAs that were put out back in the day, and it was illuminating. Later on, I saw great examples of mind control and social engineering in I Love Lucy, of all places, which actually came out around 1951 as well. It was pretty blatant there. So I asked Logan to come on and have a chat with me about it, and we're going to discuss this subject before you right now. Welcome, Logan. How's it going? Nice to see you.
It's great. Thanks for having me once again. Appreciate it.
All right. So in this age when people are able to communicate effortlessly and instantly all across the planet, how important do you think it is that we be aware of tactics of mind control?
I mean, to the point now, I mean, as long as I've been watching it and paying attention to it, and as long as you've been watching it, I mean, it's utmost critical in my opinion, honestly. I mean, I want to say that I started picking up on this stuff about the time I was in about 6th or 7th grade. Obviously, I watched a lot of network television, but I really started to pick up on just the blatant messages, and maybe not so much being able to identify propaganda, but I could definitely tell whenever, whether it was even a commercial or a program or anything, was just trying to steer your thoughts in a certain direction, right? It's in everything, and obviously definitely blatant in children's television, because the younger they can begin with you, the better off they are, right? That's going to be, the program's going to be even more successful if you can start even when a child's still in diapers, putting them in front of the television, which I've been guilty of with my own children for sure, right? So honestly, Regan, I think that it's something that really has to come to the forefront as soon as possible. People need to be aware. And the beauty of right now, I think, is I'm seeing more and more people become aware. I mean, literally by the minute, right? So this is a really exciting time. But at the same time, I also feel like not enough people are aware at the same time. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think you brought up a couple of really interesting points there. And the first one that I noticed was, you said you watched a lot of network television, but you're probably one of the few people that watched network television and actually recognized the fact that there was a message there that wasn't being obviously broadcasted. And the other was advertising. Advertising is blatant mind control. Like their whole goal is to make you feel a certain way and make you think a certain way, and they don't even apologize for it. Like they're like Stromboli. They're trying to pull your strings.
Yes, that's great. Yes, Stromboli was the puppeteer, not Geppetto. He was the wood carver.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Another interesting point that I took from what you were saying is it seems funny that now, when mind control and social engineering tactics are more sophisticated than ever, is when more people are waking up. In the 50s with I Love Lucy, it was pretty heavy-handed. Like when I watched one of the first episodes of the second season of I Love Lucy, when she has the baby and she brings little Ricky, she has little Ricky at home, and she's doing things around the apartment. Along one wall, they had all his toys piled up, right? Like she had all this big mess to clean up, and all the baby's things are everywhere. And Matt, they had a bicycle. This is like a 6-month-old baby. They had a bicycle. They had toys that were just way not age appropriate. like absolutely age inappropriate. And there was no way a baby was ever going to be playing with these things, but they still crammed them into the scene to show you that this is all the stuff that you need when you have a child.
Good call. I didn't think about that. Yeah. Do you also think that, do you think that that show was also trying to reinforce what they thought a woman's role in the home would be?
I'm not too sure about that. You know, Lucille Ball was a real renegade in her own right. You know, she was a woman in the comedian world or in the comedy world and in show business. And her name was first on the bill. She was a major part of producing that show. And so in that regard, I kind of think that he was bucking the trends a lot. But at the same time, there was still that message they were already laying in for women's liberation and equality of the sexes and whatever else. And they were using it in that show because Lucy was always trying to bust into the show and Ricky was trying to stop her and stifle her and keep her at home.
She definitely was not submissive in any way.
No, she really showed a much more of a firebrand of an attitude. She always made jokes about how she was dyeing her hair red to be different than, or to make her image differently than what she actually was. And then, you know, to get right to the most blatant piece of, well, I guess it was advertising, but it was propaganda. And that was that the show was sponsored by Philip Morris. And they lit a smoke in almost every scene. There was always a tray of cigarettes on the table for anybody anybody comes into the house, hey, would you like a cigarette? They were showing you how you were supposed to behave with cigarettes. They were showing you what was the socially acceptable way to offer them and to spread the product around. And that was the big thing that I noticed. I didn't even really put it together until I watched the original opening credits. And it's like a little animated thing with Lucy and Desi running around. And it's like, it's brought to you by Philip Morris. You know, like it was very, you know, is that traditional announcer's voice. And he was definitely putting it out there that, you know, this is what you're supposed to be, you know, this is the thing to do, is to have cigarettes, have them around your house, offer them to everybody who comes in. And so that in itself was just, you know, a really obvious piece of mind control to me.
Right.
Have you seen any other examples of that in any other shows?
Oh gosh, I mean, I don't think there's a show out there that doesn't have it in it at this point, and probably hasn't been for decades. I want to say that you could probably pick up almost anything that made it mainstream, and it's going to have it in there some way, shape, or form. The one thing that comes to my mind, probably the strongest right now, is ads directed towards anyone that maybe 40 or under, people that are active in like the dating scene or they're searching for someone, right? So this has been going on for at least since the 70s, probably, if not before, but it's if you don't buy X product, the opposite sex isn't going to think you're attractive. You know, if you don't have these jeans, or if you don't have that perfume, or if you don't drive this car, she's never going to date you. You have to own this. You have to own this piece of property to become appealing to another human being. And that's been rampant since as long as I can remember. I mean, I'm 38 years old, and I don't think it's ever, I don't ever remember it not being that way. Or even toy, you know, back when toy commercials were the big thing. I haven't had television since 2015, so I don't really know what commercials look like anymore. And I definitely don't really pay attention to any ads that play on YouTube. I mean, we all just kind of we wait for that skip button to come up, and then boom, we hit the skip button as fast as we can, right? So, but I think that it's not only, I mean, gosh, Regan, we could go so many different directions with this topic. I think one of the things that I noticed at an earlier age than a lot of folks is I want to say I was in like 7th or 8th grade. And I made the comment to somebody, I said, don't you think it's funny how all the holidays are scattered out in almost identical increments throughout the year? I said, it almost feels like they just want you to make sure you're spending money the whole year round. That was one of the first things I picked up on as a kid. I was like, what's up with these holidays? Every month has to have something to make you go to Walmart and buy something. Every single month of the year has a holiday, and it's
Yeah.
pushed on television. It's pushed here. It's pushed there, because it just produces it's a consumer world with the holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing too to point out with holidays is they just changed the spelling of holy days, right?
Yeah.
They changed holy days into holidays.
Yeah.
On another note, we also have bank holidays. And if you take that same principle and apply it to that, a bank holiday is a bank holy day. And those are days dedicated to Saturn, which was the god of banking and commerce, right? So,
God,
and the government recognizes those. Their government recognized holidays. Yeah, government banking. Yeah, all of them. They're really big on the, well, it's a bank holiday. And you always wonder, like, well, who cares? Like, when is it a shipping holiday? It's never a shipping holiday. That's more useful than banking.
I think the way they kept everybody from caring about it or overly paying attention is they made it to where you got a day off from work. So then you don't question it. Oh, I get a day off. Oh, cool. And then you don't say
exactly.
You don't say another word. It's like our own. It's a little version of bread and circus. Yeah. It's that, here's that little crumb. We're gonna go do a bunch of shady shit while you're off work, but take the day off. You've earned it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because they needed some time to do whatever they're doing. Like whether it's a Bohemian Grove or whatever else. Like we don't know.
It could just be a bunch of wire transfers.
It could be, but what we do know for sure is that they make specific time to do those events. Like if you schedule the president of the United States to come to your Bohemian Grove thing, that they're pulling strings in pretty high places. This isn't maybe not even Stromboli. We're talking like Stromboli's boss.
Right. Gotcha. What would you say? Whenever you want to talk like subliminal mind control and stuff like that, what to you would you say is the most egregious or the most impactful? When I ask you that, what do you think? What's the first thing that comes to your mind whenever you think it's one of them that's just a heavy hitter?
I was thinking MTV. Here they call it Much Music. The music video channels. They don't really even play music very much anymore at all. It's all programming designed to socially engineer the next generation of people. Jersey Shore. And yeah. Jersey Shore is a good one. Teen Mom, another good one. Yeah. Even Friends. A lot of people used to ask, I know when people started watching Friends again recently, some of the questions that came out was, how does this group of people always have the center table in this happening New York coffee spot? Right? And somebody pointed out that there's always a reserved sign on that table. That was their table. That's why they never came in and had to kick somebody off their table, because it was their reserved table. Yeah. And it's one of those things that you don't really notice. Like it takes people having to do a kind of a deep dive on it and jump on Reddit and get the Reddit wizards on that. And boom, the answer comes out in short order. Yeah. Hey, it can be a tool. There's some folks out there that are on top of things that, that's what we do. To get the truth, you got to go underground. That's just the way it's been for too long now. Actually, I've never been on Reddit really at all, except like jump into forums, like to read what other people are saying. I've never participated in it, but from what my understanding is the level of clever on Reddit is like way up there. Like they make the Apple Store geniuses look like dullards. Right. Yeah. Although most of them probably work. I've only gone on there to read. I've never participated, but there's plenty of content to read. If you can sift through the falsehoods, right? Some of the stuff you got to really just take it with, okay,
I'm on Reddit, I'm going to run into some people that are going to say some really dumb stuff. And then occasionally you'll stumble onto somebody that you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this person's well read and educated. Okie dokie. Let's see what they've got to say.
Yeah. And Reddit does seem to be more of a younger person's forum. You know, like you don't find a lot of people sporting gray hair on Reddit, at least in my experience. You know, most of the people are, you know, college age and kind of college to middle aged as far as the really clever content. You know, it's not like 4chan. 4chan is like Reddit for teenagers.
Right.
Yeah, or early 20s anyway. But yeah, we're kind of deviating off here. But yeah, mind control, I find it's I mean, well, like another really big one is the news, of course. The news is full on mind control these days, especially with so few people owning the media, you know, and that used to be a conspiracy theory. I used to have to get into arguments with people to get them to understand that, you know, at that time, I think seven people or 7 boards.
I think it's around all 6 the media now or in the something United like States. That. Yeah, it's less than 10.
Maybe even 5.
Yeah, it's a low number for sure.
Yeah, and the number's going down. The number's going down as they consolidate.
Yeah, you've got one individual, I think, that owns both Fox and CNN right now, isn't it? Rupert Murdoch, doesn't he own both of those? I know he recently purchased Fox.
I'm not sure.
I'll have to double check that one. I know that.
Yeah, I don't.
He recently
I
acquired
don't really follow
Fox.
that too much.
Right. Well, I don't watch it.
I find when I get too involved.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I find when I get too involved in those kinds of subjects, I don't have people to talk to about it, right? So that's actually one of the reasons why I really appreciate this forum, is I can, you know, get out there and talk with somebody, or when I'm doing my solo videos, at least then I can just talk and people can listen. But yeah, that's one of those. I kind of stepped away from all of that. I stepped away a lot from conspiracy as well here. I was starting to step away from it probably 2-3 years ago. And then a year ago, when I had my heart attack, I took a real hard double step away from it because I noticed that conspiracy theory thinking was starting to go mainstream. And you were suddenly starting to find this mind control in the conspiracy theory or the conspiracy crowd as well. All of a sudden, one of them comes up with something and the rest of them start bleeding it like a bunch of sheep that, oh, suddenly we've figured out what that unsolvable mystery is. So-and-so figured it out, and now that's the truth. And that goes against the whole spirit of the conspiracy crowd. Like, we're supposed to be looking for the truth, and you can't just pull it out and put it on a flashcard and say, ta-da, we did it, memorize this, and now you know the truth. Because we both know that the truth is far more complicated than that.
Yeah, I think that was done intentionally by the folks that are actually originating, the folks that are pushing all the propaganda and the programming. They found a way to infiltrate that other side and create their own psyops within. That's exactly what happened. And that
absolutely,
that's
100% what I think too.
Some folks are waking up to it. You and I both converse with people that have probably are aware and very aware of that, but that one I think is still not catching on as fast as what I would like. The programming ran pretty deep on that because they found a way to touch the passion of the conspiracy theorists. They found a way to literally penetrate their heart. They found what they're passionate about and they infiltrated it. And the misinformation just implodes. I mean, it's exponential.
Yeah, and if you can feed misinformation to somebody, I mean, that's right, straight out of Sun Tzu's Art of War. If you can feed misinformation to the enemy, you can make them do the wrong thing. And the one thing that people in the conspiracy community are really passionate about is finding answers. Yeah. So they threw them some answers. And they threw them the wrong answers, and they got them to start trumpeting those and making themselves look stupid and just denigrating the whole practice of searching for the truth.
Yep. And one of the residuals from that is that it further sows division, which is what the powers that be want.
Yeah.
It's just they get so many. There's more than one residual effect from infiltrating the conspiracy side. It really has a hell of a ripple effect, and they can really bring the whole house of cards down.
Yeah, and they're doing a pretty good job of it, to be perfectly honest. And to give them their due, they've really undermined a lot of the conspiracy crowd. It's no longer a place where you can go to share ideas that are unusual. It's a place where you go to find out what's going on. And they've almost turned the conspiracy community into the underground misinformation network. Like there's just so many people spouting what they know to be true when sadly they don't even have any evidence. Like if you ask most people who talk conspiracies, who talk about the answers that they have, and you ask them to cite their sources and whatever else, they can't do it. They'll say, oh, well, so-and-so made a video. Well, so-and-so made a video, so what? That doesn't mean anything. Where's the documents that he made the video from? Where's the source material? Oh, it was so much I didn't want to read it. Well, you don't even want to be here, man. If you aren't willing to read the material and to be able to cite your documents, there's an old saying, a maxim of law, Roman maxim of law. It says, if you know not the name of a thing, let all other knowledge of that thing perish. Meaning, if you can't even say what you got your information from, you don't know the information that you got.
It's a good point. And I've been guilty of that as well. I've fallen in that trap for sure.
Oh, myself too. Yeah, I'm throwing stones at everybody here, like we're running a lawnmower through a pile of dog shit on this one, right? Everybody gets covered.
Yeah. That's funny.
But I think we need to get a little bit of dog shit on us because we're not in a position where we can afford to be certain of anything that we find out that way. Everything needs to be checked and double checked. I know I had a guy come stay with me years ago who was implementing the freedom movement in Canada. And if you go online, like you can't find somebody who, says the wrong opinion about pick a popular subject lately these days. I'm not even going to say it because I don't want to get in trouble for it. Right. But you can go on there and find out where this guy's telling you how the government will pay your bills. And it's been on there for 10 years and no one's taken it down. It's either true and they missed him, or it's misinformation and they're trying to make people look stupid and cause problems. Yeah. And then they write down that person's name.
I'm really glad you brought that up because something that folks I feel like need to realize, maybe not realize, but let's just stop and think about this for a second. If you've got somebody out there that is really got the juiciest of juicy stuff on the federal government and it's just horrific and it's this, it's that, it's some of the most incriminating stuff ever. And if they for some reason are still allowed to have like a platform, like a huge soapbox without being snuffed, then that should tell you something. Because if it was true, it would be nixed like that. To your point,
if they can go to the grocery store without catching a bullet in the back of their head, they probably aren't telling the truth.
Yeah, there's a good chance that it's 100% controlled opposition. Absolutely. Yes, and that's what I would love for people. I'm not trying to, guys, I've fallen victim to all of it. I've gone down the rabbit hole and I've believed stuff that wasn't true. And I've hand to God, like I've been that guy, right? So my message is coming from a good place of just stop, take a step back and just kind of look at things and be like, is this really what I think it is? And if you still believe that, then that's fine. I'm not being critical, but I'm just saying, let's truly think about some of the information that makes it out there And knowing that the powers that be, big tech and the government, have 100% control on everything that's broadcasted. I don't care who says what, they have control over all of it. If something is continued to be allowed to be blasted like that, that just seems like it's some of the most horrific or juicy information ever. Like, we need to stop and think, like, why is this allowed? Why is this allowed to be broadcasted? Why are they allowing this to enter my psyche? What's the purpose?
And something you said kind of struck a chord in me. You said not intending to be critical, but I think it's okay to be critical. We're part of the truth community, and the truth community criticizes the facts to get the truth out of them. You know, like it's not a crime to have a critical mindset and to be critical when it comes to the truth. I have a saying that when I think that somebody is lying to me, I talked about it in one of my previous videos, but I'll go over it real quickly again. When I think somebody's lying to me, I lean on their lie and I say, "Oh yeah, that's what you had to tell me." Oh, I put my elbow down on it. Let's see. Oh, well, you know, you had to, you know, your phone only texts and doesn't call. Okay, well, how about I give your phone a call and see, right? How about we lean on that lie? How about we try to push a little pressure on it, because the truth won't break. You can you can lean on the truth all day. It's a concrete bench that's reinforced with steel, and it's not going anywhere. But you lean on a lie, and people are like, whoa, 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 hey, don't lean on that. Oh, why? You said this is the truth, and the truth will hold up under anything. The truth is like adamantium spikes, you know, like, why can't I lean on this? Oh, we just don't want to, it's got wet paint or whatever, you know, like they're going to come up with some kind of a bullshit excuse, you know, and a lie to cover up their lie. You know, that's what liars do.
Or they may begin to even verbally attack you. Whatever it takes.
Or they may begin to verbally attack you. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever it takes to get out of that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll start calling you names, or, you know, trying to redirect you someplace else. Maybe they'll try to joke with you. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just dismiss you from their life entirely, you know, like just be like, no, you can't even, you're not even allowed to talk here. You know, that's, you know, and that's, I mean, that's another form of mind control. You know, you get canceled and suddenly you start thinking about what you can say. You know, somebody blocks you, you know, kicks you out of a group, whatever. You suddenly realize, maybe I can't say the things that I want to say. Maybe I should walk a little bit more lightly, because, and that's a form of mind control in itself. It's just, it's the simplest one. It's fear, right? Fear and intimidation, but that's in itself its own type of mind control.
Yeah, I think that since you brought up fear, I mean, fear's a huge one. I mean, fear started, I think a lot of our parents did it to us, and I don't even think they realized they were doing it, right? But it's, well, don't do this because this will happen. Don't do that because that'll happen. Obviously, if it's going to kill you or if it's going to hurt you bad, I understand that. But there's also the little stuff of, well, don't go out in the rain. You're going to get sick. That's the one that hurts me the most, right? Don't go out in the cold rain for too long because you'll get sick. You'll catch something. And it's like, that's not, if you're talking bacterial or viral, then you're not going to get it from cold rain. It doesn't, that one never, I never did understand why people even went with that, but it implants the fear and you're, oh gosh, I don't want to get sick. I can't be out in this rain for too long. I used to work with a woman that, her heart was in the right place with this. She was a single parent, and I can sympathize with that. But we worked there in a oil filter factory there in Southern Illinois, and she would, during the cold months, well, as soon as she got out of her car, she would cover her mouth and she would run into the building, because she thought just by being outside in 25-degree air that she was going to get sick.
Oh,
that's
and you know, I think maybe
that's a deep implant.
That's really deep. That is. And it's absolutely rooted in fear. You know, if you could ever get a grown adult to run, you've probably got some fear happening in them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, unless they're an avid runner. But you know what I was thinking? I'm thinking what that original thought probably came from with don't be out in the rain too long or you'll get cold, get sick. What if it was just to keep kids from getting muddy and cutting down on the amount of time spent to clean their clothes?
It could have been.
Because if you spend time out in the rain, you are going to get wet. You're going to get muddy. You know, like you never know what the ulterior motive is on that. So that's just something that all of a sudden that just kind of came to me. I wonder if it was that.
You know, I think that one, I don't know the origin on that, but it wouldn't surprise me if that is like 300 or 400 years old. I could see that one originating a long time
ago. It could
I don't feel like that's recent. I don't. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you can't.
But living off grid, let me tell you. No, but living off grid, I can tell you that when you need to clean clothes in this type of environment, the effort goes way up. You know, I could totally see that it would be attached to being clean at some point or another because of the effort involved. I mean, even in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, his mom was a washerwoman, but he goes to visit her at work and she's got like big pots of water with an oar that she's swirling the clothes around in, you know, like this is not an electric laundry. There was a lot of effort went into washing clothes. You know, where I lived in New Guinea, the women would like scrub the clothes on a rock or on a board.
Yeah,
and they would whip them around and beat them against, these ladies just had like a plank, right? And they'd scrub it against this plank. And then to spin the water out, they would literally like spin the clothes around and slap them down on this board to spray the water out. And then they wipe the water off the board and slap it down again. And that was how they would get most of the water out of their clothes. It was highly physically draining, you know? And when it comes to something like that, I can see that, you know, somebody who is having to do that level of work and wring out clothes by hand, you're going to probably want to come up with some reason that your children shouldn't be getting their clothes dirty, you know? No, don't run around in the rain. You're going to get sick. But really, it could have been that they just didn't want to have to wash all those clothes over and over again because of the effort involved.
Could have very well been easily done. Kind of reminds me of whenever you're talking about the way they wash the clothes. Have you seen where I want to say this is probably not just a specific country. It's probably all over the world, but many, many years ago, where they would hang up rugs and then they would beat them with wooden paddles to beat the dirt out of the rug. Kind of a similar process.
Yeah. I've done that myself here, actually living off grid, hang stuff up and beat the dust out of it because it works.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's maybe not the best way to get your linens clean, but it does work.
Do you ever have you heard of the old saying, and this is like Dark Ages type stuff. You remember when people were convinced that breathing outside air during the night was unhealthy and bad as well? Night air is bad air. Have you heard that one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an old one too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Or like in the Black Death, where the people would have their face mask of the day, which was a nosegay, right? Or a cluster of flowers, and you press it up to your nose so you don't inhale the dark humors, right? That are going to give you the Black Death, when in fact it's the flea that was chewing on your ankle, you know, and they just didn't understand.
Yeah. Or the rat that was.
They didn't understand the process.
You were sleeping.
Yeah. Which totally is a thing. If you live in a place where there's lots of rats, they do that.
I personally know someone.
I live in Alberta.
I know somebody that happened to. They lived in, by choice, they were filthy rich, but they lived in rough conditions because they didn't want to spend any of their money. And sure enough, when they were an older couple, and whenever they were laid down one night, the wife had a rat chewing on her foot. This was only like 15 years ago.
Oh, wow. Wow. See, here in Alberta, we actually don't have any rats. They spend like, I think, $2 billion a year to keep all rats, like the black rat, the Norway rat, out of this area. It's one of the few rat-free areas in the entire world. And they found that with the money that they spent to get rid of rats, it offset by far the amount of damage that rats do to an economy. So this is one of the few rat-free areas in the entire world.
Interesting.
And if you find a rat here, like I live on a border area, there's extensive rat patrols that you can phone up, and they will come out and fumigate your place and like get rid of them. If you find a nest, there's a hotline that you can phone, and the rat hotline, they show up and they exterminate with prejudice. Like, it's never happened to me, and I don't even know anyone it's happened to. They're really, really strict on it.
Rat busters.
Yeah, rat busters, exactly. Don't cross the streams.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's like my favorite line. I did not know that. That's a neat piece of knowledge for sure. For sure. What's something else that's a really old one that was implanted? I like these old ones. Can you think of anything that's been around just forever?
Well, the one that really caught my attention hard when I came to it by watching the Duck and Cover when I mentioned it earlier was Is He a Communist? And that was during the Red Scare in the 60s. And that was like the next video that came up from Bert the Turtle's Duck and Cover was Is He a Communist? And the mind control there is pretty blatant. It's all rooted in fear. It's that guilt fear paradigm that we've come to recognize so well. It's kind of like they overplayed their hand on that one. They had this really great trick that worked really well, but they played it too many times, like The Boy Who Cried Wolf, and they ended up, some people were suddenly like, oh no, you're just trying to scare me, and it stopped working. But yeah, the Is He a Communist video, I'm going to post links to these videos in the notes for this show because they're really good videos. Everyone should watch them. Is He a Homosexual, or How to Spot the Homosexual? That was another good one. That was it was really interesting. It's once again, they put a big scare around even associating with a homosexual, and that's where really the mind control patterns really started to hit with me, is because I watched those 3 videos in a row. And my ex-girlfriend at the time was watching these videos with me, and she was laughing and pointing things out too, and like, oh, look at this and look at that. And like one thing, for instance, the mind control, back to Duck and Cover, one of the central things that I noticed over and over and over again, and like I was watching it with the label up in the corner, so it said, Bert the Turtle, Duck and Cover, 1951. But I noticed in almost center screen, in almost every shot, they had a black kid in the schools. And this was before the schools were non-segregated. Like this was a message that they were definitely trying to push out, because there was only one black kid in the whole class. I looked, there was one black kid in the whole class. He sat right in the middle. And when they went and looked at Susie, the black kid was sitting behind Susie. When they talked to Jimmy, the black kid sitting behind Jimmy. But that black kid was center screen all the time. And
why do you think that was?
I'm not saying there's anything. I think it was to push the idea of breaking the Jim Crow laws. Like sometimes the mind control that they put out there does have a positive effect on groups of people and society at large. It's not always bad, but you can't trust that the people who are putting out 1 or 2 good things here and there actually have your best interest at heart.
Right, for sure. What do you think about Reefer Madness?
Oh, you know what? I've only seen like just clips of it. I've never watched the whole thing. But
it's just a
Reefer
giant.
Madness, that was
It's a giant smear.
On
yeah, it was a giant smear. It was basically teaching you that anyone that used it was literally they were violent, they were rapists, they were just crazed lunatics that would steal all of your money just to go feed their addiction. And it was absolutely, I mean, more or less, if you could replace Reefer Madness with methamphetamine, it would actually be an accurate documentary piece. But the fact that they chose,
which is, but they were trying to sell methamphetamine at the time.
Yeah.
That was the new wonder drug.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. No, as long as you're buying it through a pharmaceutical company, for some reason it's legal. It's okay. It's cool. You know, they don't care about how bad it is for you. But the minute you get something that's not funneling money to them, then, well, you're in prison. So
Mother Nature can't afford lobbyists.
No doubt. For sure.
You know, it's just like we were talking about in the last video, corporate interests, you know, like corporate interests swaying opinion and, you know, silencing something, you know, censoring it due to the fact that it hurts their bottom line. And like, I understand that they are beholden to the stockholders and it's their job to make the stock go up. But if the stock is going up at the cost to society at large, then they're doing it unscrupulously.
Right. What about radio jingles to get you to buy a product? They have
radio jingles are
I mean, again, we're still talking about like the 50s when this stuff was really picking up. Well, probably jingles were probably 20s and 30s. They started that early. But either way, it just got you to associate a product or an action that would require your money, to associate it with a cute little song, and usually a beautiful woman or someone with a beautiful voice or whatever it took, but usually no more than 30 seconds long to steer you to go spend your money at X, Y, or Z. I mean, they don't have to be extremely nefarious to be mind control. In the end, they either want to sell you a certain way, they want your money, or another. I mean, there could be other things too, but in terms of the agenda is generally simple. They just, a lot of times it's just to bleed money out of
you. Yeah, exactly. It's in fact, it's almost always to bleed money out of you.
Yeah.
You know, as a man anyway. With women get influenced to give up sex because that's one of the valuable things that they have to offer that gets exploited.
Mm-hmm.
But with men, you know, sex from men isn't all that valuable. You know, it's dime a dozen out there. So you try to, you know, you use women to try to draw men in with that sexual energy.
Right.
And with men, it's money. You know, like one of the things that I've noticed is as a man, men, as far as a creative act goes, the best thing that we can do is make something with our hands. There's something that we're personally like primarily responsible for. We can make something with our hands. We can write songs. We can do something with our mind, but we can't actually create like a physical creature like a baby. And so in order to pay for babies, men go out and they create their own babies, you know, like guys, they talk about their car as their baby. Or with myself, I made a knife for my ex-girlfriend. And after it was done being made, it sat on my table for 3 days, and I picked it up and I held it and I looked at it and I admired it. And I loved that knife a whole lot before I could even bear to put it in the mail and send it off. You know, I'm a poor knife maker in that regard, because it hurts me to get rid of my things that I've made and put so much of my own effort and energy into.
Right.
And so that's the thing that they're always trying to get from men is, you know, we make things with our hands and we sell them. We're like selling our, you know, our non-physical children, but like it's kind of a piece of you goes with it every time you sell something that you made. At least it does for me. I don't know if it's like that for everyone. Maybe there's people out there who just have bits of themselves to sell endlessly like that, but I don't. It's for me, it's a lot of myself goes into everything I make. And we sell our, you know, these little facsimile children in order to pay for the actual lives of real children and to raise them up and to give them the things that they need and the necessities of life.
Yeah, I think back to your point though, I do still think that women, in terms of a consumer economy, are still possibly some of the biggest targets for mind control to bleed money out of them. Look at all the accessories, look at makeup, look at this, look at
They
that.
are now.
I mean, it's bigger than it's ever been, I think, especially with clothing trends.
Yeah.
Because
Once advertisers
now they're
realize that 80% of the purchases,
go ahead.
80% of the purchases are done by women. Once they
Mhm.
figure that out, they shifted the whole angle of advertising over to target women.
And
And so that
now,
is the biggest audience now for
yeah,
advertising.
and now even when you're talking like clothing and makeup and stuff like that, the targeted age is younger than it's ever been. We're talking
Yeah,
we're going after 11 and 12-year-olds now in terms of
yeah,
designer clothes and
yeah,
makeup and this and
exactly.
that. I mean, they're targeting younger than it's ever been. And then I mean, it's sick. It really is. I mean, that we've it's gone so far that we're to the point now where the programming is so deep that we're trying to get a kid to grow up all the way. I mean, not parents obviously, but these companies and the people that control this stuff. They want a kid that's 10 years old to be basically doing and buying and thinking about things that a grown adult does. And they're robbing them of their childhood. They really are.
Yeah,
It's gross.
yeah. No, that's a great point. That's it. I not having children on my own, I don't see those things, but obviously you would see that much more clearly than I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. It makes a whole lot of sense because, I mean, once again, if you can get a kid to pester their parent for something that the parent would buy for themselves, then they just made another sale. And
Yeah.
that's really all they really genuinely care about, is getting that next sale.
Are you familiar with what Hannah Montana is?
Yep.
Yeah, that was
Yep.
huge. You want to talk about almost I mean millions easily. I don't know if they've ever hit the billion status. Maybe not that family, but the people that were riding on their coattails and also probably manipulating them into doing things. That one was that exploded on the scene so huge that I would say at least 50% of all households in America, if not more, were impacted by it and funded it in their own way, buying this, buying that, what have you, or maybe not even purchasing, but you paid for your cable package that aired the show. It hit almost every household in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they figured out how to do
And then you look at what the fallout was on the actress, that was Miley Cyrus.
Mhm.
And when she got out from under that Disney contract, she blew apart. It's that you could tell that her individuality had been suppressed so badly that
Yeah.
she had to act out in order to reclaim her own personality and to reclaim her own power as a human being, or just as a woman. She had to do all this outrageous shit that she never could have done when she was under the Disney contract. And if you see her now, like she's still kind of, doing her thing, but she's growing her hair out again. She's looking more feminine. She's not doing the things that she used to, because now you can tell that she has kind of reclaimed who she was, and she's maybe even just now discovering who she is. But you can see that there was a lot of damage done to her.
I mean,
through that whole experience.
Yeah, when you're a child star before the age of 12, you don't have a childhood. You know what's funny is I do agree with what you said though, because whenever you see, like if you see one of these people that have been in the industry since they were a child, or maybe at least a very young adolescent or an adult, but let's say they're in the grips for a long time. Whenever you do see them go off the deep end, I didn't think about this until you brought it up, but it does make sense. I do feel like they're doing something so drastic because, for one, I think they're trying to say, no matter how drastic and no matter how insane this is, I am choosing to do this. Therefore, it's almost a way of feeling like even even if it's them just going off the deep end and running out in public butt naked or something, it's the fact of I'm regaining control of my life through an extremely destructive way.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You know, it's I mean, in fact, I got to say, I did a little bit of that myself, you know, being raised as a missionary.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pressure on you to behave in a certain way.
Yeah.
From a very early age, I was told that we're ambassadors of the mission. And so if you screw up, you're going to make the entire mission look bad, and you're going to hurt the whole reputation of this missionary group. And so, like, I was a serious minded child. I took that very seriously. And I lived with a lot of constraints. And when I hit 17, no, 18, when I hit 18, I had a job. I had friends who drank. And I started drinking. Shortly after that, I started smoking pot. And I started doing these, like, just like you said, self-destructive things to reclaim my own identity, to say, well, this is actually who I am. I'm not that guy who has to, you know, who's going to affect the status of missionaries in 52 countries or whatever it was, you know. And it wouldn't have. It would have caused a ripple effect in that village, and maybe a couple of communities around might have heard something about it. But in my mind, it was built up to a much larger extent. And so when that pressure was taken off of me and I could just be myself again, or be who I thought I was, I did those things. I did take part in those, you know, self-destructive things. And by the time I was 19 years old, had done cocaine. And, you know, like I really kind of spun out there, you know, like it wasn't healthy. It wasn't an uplifting experience. And it brought me a whole lot of pain and sorrow in the long run. But I definitely felt the need to do that.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the mission. Mind control in the church. Oh man, that's a real heavy hitter. I mean, I experienced it. I mean, I went to a Methodist church up until I was probably 13 or 14 years old. It was pretty regularly as a child, although me and my brother pushed back a lot. We just didn't want to go. We didn't like it. Not that the people were bad or anything. They weren't. They were great people, but we grew up extremely fortunate. We didn't really have to want for anything. So naturally, church was boring whenever you had everything under the sun at home, right? So, but to your point, I specifically remember one time where I was in church and out of nowhere, I was scared shitless for no reason. And I'll tell you the story. It wasn't my regular church. We went to a different one in town. It was what they called a Christian church. Ours was Methodist. There was two Methodist churches. There was a Christian church, and then there was a Moravian church, all in our town of 1,000 people. We had 4 active churches at one point in time, in a town that was only a square mile. But we had specifically gone to the Christian church for some reason that Sunday, and they were having communion. And I didn't know what communion was, and it was my first time. And all of a sudden I see these silver platters kind of pass through the pews and everything, and they've got these tiny little plastic shot glasses with a little bit of grape juice, and then the wafer was actually just a tiny. I'm trying to compare what the size would be. It was a little bit smaller than like an M&M, but it was the bread. But it was like hard dough. It was like hard dough, but it was about the size of an M&M, maybe a little bit smaller. And I didn't think anything of it, but I remember the tray came past and I grabbed it, and I'm kind of looking around, just kind of like watching what everybody else is doing. So I don't know what the hell's going on, right? I'm like 9 years old, probably not understanding what's going on. And I remember I drank the juice, and then I popped that little bread dough pill in my mouth. And I started crunching it. And then all of a sudden I looked around and I saw that everybody, at least the immediate circle around me, was still holding it. And I was panicking. I just started panicking. Oh my God, I wasn't supposed to do that. What's going to happen to me? I ate and drank that already. Is God going to blah, blah? I mean, just all these just massive, just gears turning in my head. And I'm just going through this little 20-second absolute freak out. And I really think that comes back to kind of how religion and the church kind of drilled it in your head to act a certain way and to speak a certain way and things like that. And especially while you were in church, to definitely not act out in any way and be as straight laced as you possibly could. Right. So I think that alone just kind of comes to my mind of, how deep the programming was that, oh my gosh, I may have stepped out of line in church and I was just panicking.
Yeah. And that's interesting that so many churches preach that philosophy of, sit down, be quiet, don't disturb the service and whatever else, because Jesus specifically spoke about that in saying, suffer ye the little children to come unto me. Basically, he was saying you need to put up with children in order to approach God, right? Children are just as important in any society as the most dour and, well participating person in church. But when a little child, I don't know, in the churches I've been in, when a little child all of a sudden starts talking too loud, people kind of look over and they kind of snicker a little bit. And I think that's the right attitude, rather than giving that family a sharp look. You should kind of look over and see what that source of joy is. And I think that's more in line with the message that Jesus gave there, is that, suffer ye the little children. And he's like, hey, put up with them. They're children. Yeah. You don't have to make them sit down and shut up and wear their nice clothes and whatever else. Like, I never liked going to church because I always had to wear my nice clothes. Yeah. And when you're wearing your nice clothes, you can't have any fun.
Nope.
So the entire fashion show theory of church, it ruined the entire enjoyment of church for me. I couldn't go there and have fun with the other children. No, yeah. I had to wear my white button-up shirt. I had to wear the stiff leather shoes that never fit properly because you only wore them 30 times before you grew out of them.
Yeah, and they hurt.
If 30 times.
Yeah,
they hurt. Yeah, and you couldn't run in them. They didn't bend properly with your foot.
Right.
The entire experience was made uncomfortable for the sake of what I call the church fashion show.
Yeah.
Right. And then
exactly
you go there and
you
do your spirituality by number. You do spirituality by number. You sing at the right time. You get the juice at the right time. You hold on to it and drink it at the right time and make sure you do everything right.
Yeah.
That flies in the face of my own experience with spirituality, and that it's much more of a living thing,
Oh yeah. I'm glad go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm glad you brought up standing up at the right time and singing at the right time, because I've noticed that in the places I've been, like if somebody fell out of line, sometimes the congregation wouldn't say much, but you'd see like the side eye looks, and then maybe kind of somebody kind of to their spouse or whatever, and I can promise you, I'd bet my salary that it wasn't positive language, right? It wasn't a lift up, it was a cut down. But also to your point of children misbehaving in church. I mean, I was the kid. I was a little tough to wrangle in church. I know my parents were pissed at me more than once because I was not representing the family correctly, right? I got more than one talking to or ass beaten from the dad, my old man, for maybe not acting right in church. But at the same time, and that's what it is. It kind of, because I mean, obviously, you got to think how my parents grew up, or how any of our parents grew up. I mean, you were even more serious in church then. I mean, you did exactly what the pastor and your parents said. You didn't question it. You were there, and then if you didn't fall in line, well, you were going to hell. And obviously my parents would never say something like that to me. They were really cool about that. But there was a lot of indoctrination of, if you step out of line in church, you're disgracing God and you're going to go to hell. There's a lot of that. And then also, to your point,
right,
I'm glad you brought up the young children, because again, in the church I went to, if there would be maybe a family or two in there that didn't always have the money to wear their Sunday best, but they always had a gang of kids with them, and the kids were little and they were kind of rambunctious and this and that. And then you would get, the shunning from the congregation because you didn't fall into you were the square peg that would, or you weren't being a square peg to fit in a square hole. you were a round peg that was just kind of rolling around and didn't fit in any hole, and then all of a sudden you were shunned. I mean, obviously you could still come to church, but you weren't included in the cliques, right? Because they were full of cliques too. I mean, you bring in you couple control with the propaganda, and then our inherent nature just to click up, to feel superior, right? And it really became toxic. It was a very toxic environment at times.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes back to that mind control thing, you know, because if they can control your behavior by giving you a stink eye look over their shoulder, that's mind control. You know, it doesn't always have to be the duck and cover. It doesn't have to be MTV. It can be something as subtle as a housewife sneering at you because your child made some noise.
It's your
peers.
You know,
And I think it's funny that when in talking about mind control, we've actually spun right back around, you know, not completely, but in another way to what we were talking about last time with fear, right? Because it seems to me that the underlying current of all this mind control is fear.
Yeah.
You know, it's the baser instincts and the base reactions to things. They just want to get us to, and that's something, you know, like since my spiritual reawakening last year, I've spent a lot of time trying to discover what types of things raise my vibration or, you know, exalt me, and what kind of things lower my vibration. And one of the things that always, through my spiritual practices that I've studied over and over again, every single commercial I've ever seen lowers your vibration. It turns you into more of an animal version of a man or a woman than something else. Something that, like, there's one song I like by Iced Earth. And I'm not going to dig for it because it's not jumping to the top of my mind right now, but it's when I shared it with my ex-girlfriend, I said, you know, actually, from what I've seen, this song actually really raises a vibration. And she said, well, it's discordant and it's loud and it's not pleasant sounding. So I actually think that you're probably wrong. I can't see how it could be. So I went out and I listened to it extensively one day while I was working, and the message within it was pure. It was all about fighting for what you believe in, resisting the pressures to drive you into, you know, being a sheep. Think for yourself. Don't give up your individuality. All of that was there. And those are the types of things that raise us up. Because as the ancient Greeks found, you empower a society and you empower the whole by improving the quality of the individual. And that's not something that advertising does. Advertising, just like you were saying earlier, the girls aren't going to like you if you don't spray Axe all over yourself. Yes. If you aren't wearing the correct jeans or the correct dress or the correct anything, you're not going to be a success.
Right.
And, you know, all of those messages lower us. They make us into a more base version of who we are.
Yeah. If you bring generic soda to the family reunion instead of name brand, you're going to get made fun of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's a Doug Stanhope joke, but I really like it. He said, the Coke around here is so weak that it should call it RC. Okay.
I grew up on RC. I did.
Around here, it's Co-op Gold.
Okay. That's what they call it?
Yeah, it's the Co-op. Well, the Co-op stores have their own brand, right? It's the Co-op Gold brand.
Yeah.
And so you go in there and you get the no-name soda, and it's Co-op Gold, or there's our President's Choice or our Compliments. Those are the no-name brands here, right?
They've got a lot of them here too, and I actually like looking at them because the names make me laugh. They're almost comical, right? And I'm not making fun of them. I just think I just like
some of the products are really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I guess the names, because like it's such a direct spin off of the name brand. It makes me laugh.
Yeah, for sure. But when you go down the aisle and, you know, the macaroni is President's Choice and the the spices are president's choice, and the salt is president's choice, and the cola is president's choice, and the chips are president's choice, suddenly you realize you're just shopping in the no-name store, right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's fine. You're probably contributing. I mean,
And
there's a good chance you're contributing to somebody with a little bit more pure soul, unless. Now, here's something I learned. I worked for Walmart for 11 years. Something I learned, and I also learned this at an oil filter factory I worked at as well. There's a lot of time where your top name brand companies, they're actually manufacturing the no name brand too.
Yeah, exactly.
Money's all going
except
the
for
same
maybe
place.
Fruit Loops. No-name Fruit Loops are trash.
Yeah. Or no different than, okay, here's another big psyop for you. I got one. So you remember the battery wars in the 80s? Energizer and
yeah, Duracell and Energizer.
Yeah, they're made by the same company.
Yeah.
They just freaking programmed
Really?
you to pick one or the other. And they had they had these commercials where that bunny beating that drum always outlasted the Duracell. Even the Duracell, whatever it was, a battery or whatever they would do with it, that bunny got blown up. That bunny got shot. That bunny got pushed off a cliff. And then the Energizer bunny, doom, 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 beating that drum, always kept going. And then I come to find out they're made by the same company, and they freaking warped your mind into thinking that you were in this war and you had to choose one or the other. Made by the same people.
Well, and if you really think about it, the only way they could have used the Energizer bunny in a Duracell commercial to blow up the bunny was if they bought the rights or owned the rights to that trademark.
But we don't think like that.
It makes perfect sense. Perfect sense once you look at the money of it.
Yeah, once you understand copyright laws and this and that, you're like, oh, well, if they can use that in a commercial, they must own the rights to it. That's a great point.
They would have to, yeah. I mean, in fact, I think I remembered even thinking about that when I was young. I was like, hey, why are they allowed to use that? But then I just made up an excuse for it in my head. I was like, oh, it must be a slightly different bunny, or it must be, it's not that. Yeah, that's all I did. I just kind of came up with my own interpretation as to why it was acceptable. And if they can get you to do that, then once again, they've got you to do the hard work for them. Mm-hmm. They don't need to convince you of anything once they've got you to convince yourself.
Yeah, and I'm glad we talked about that too, because I think one of the biggest forms of mind control out there is everything is broken into a dichotomy. Everything. You have one choice or the other.
Everything
is a dichotomy. It's insanity. Red or
and that's
or Pepsi, Republican, Democrat.
You bringing up the battery wars also brought to mind something else, and this is just only slightly related, but it does come back a little bit to I Love Lucy. I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast when he had Steve-O on. Steve-O from Jackass.
Yeah.
And he said that his dad was the CEO of PepsiCo when he was young. But what he also said is before his dad was the CEO of PepsiCo, and through the various stages of rising up within the corporate structure there, he was the CEO of Philip Morris.
This is Steve-O's dad?
Yep. I can't remember exactly the number of that podcast, but it was like 900 and some, 912 or whatever. 900.
Well, no wonder Jackass had it all funding.
Yeah, exactly. Because Steve-O's dad was rich, and I always wondered how these guys could get away with all this shit. But
that too.
That's it. You got a rich guy in there, with some
because they were doing stuff network television would never allow. And then somehow it made it on network television.
Yep. And then the fallout from that was you had like a new generation of guys getting out and doing idiotic shit. Like, they really set the bar for the new
I'll tell you
the
this.
new asshole, really.
I will not reveal this person's name, but my brother knew a guy that was shooting bottle rockets out of his ass 10 years before Jackass ever came out.
Yeah,
He shall remain nameless.
that's not surprising.
No. We did all kinds of dumb stuff as kids. Really dumb stuff.
Yeah,
That's funny.
absolutely.
Yeah. So,
even missionary kids do dumb shit.
oh yes, absolutely. Can you think of any restaurant or food wars? I know right now, you probably don't. Are you on Twitter at all?
No,
Okay.
no, that's one thing I've never done. I've never signed up for Twitter.
Good for you. I've been on there maybe a total of 30 minutes my whole life. It's just not worth my time. I see it just as another cesspool to occupy time where I could be doing something productive. But anyhow, another thing, and this is more fast forwarding into like the current age, but you will see companies get in what they call them a Twitter beef. And companies will get on social media and they'll start hurling insults at each other. Well, all that does is generate business, because then all of a sudden, again, you're either team Wendy's or you're team Burger King in this Twitter beef, right? And then, I'm Wendy's all the way. You get what I'm saying? It breaks things again to where all it does is it plays on your emotions to get you to pick a side. And then the end result is whatever side you're picking is getting your money.
Yeah, exactly. And just like you said earlier about the dichotomy, and it's the dichotomy in Canada. We actually have multiple political parties, and more than two of them win seats every year, or like every election. There's the NDP, which are like the New Democratic Party, which they have kind of a socialistic bent. There's the Bloc Québécois, which is that's like the Quebec Party.
Mm-hmm.
You basically can't run Bloc Québécois anywhere other than in Quebec.
Right.
They just don't get candidates elsewhere, but Quebec is a big voting pool, so they get enough to actually have some influence. And don't quote me on that. They may have Bloc candidates in Ontario and in New Brunswick and wherever people are speaking French more. But as a rule, there's no Bloc party in Western Canada. They can't run a candidate here. No one will vote for them.
Right.
And then we got the Libertarians, who nobody also votes for, although their leader is probably the most qualified man to run Canada at this time. I don't agree with everything he says, but he's got his feet really solidly on the ground. I liked him. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Which he's a politician, but still, he's a former firefighter. Like he's a guy with real life blue collar qualifications.
Yeah.
In spite of being a clever guy as well, he's also was what they call a hero these days.
Yeah, good chance he understands what it means to get skinned up every now and again.
Yeah, exactly, and to put his life on the line for something that he believes in.
Yeah.
Which is something that generally our politicians tend to hide behind the scapegoat, a lot. And then I haven't even mentioned our main parties. We got the Conservatives, which are like the Republicans, and then we got the Liberals, who are like your Democrats.
Yeah.
And who else? Then we got the Greens, and there's the Marijuana Party, and there's a few other, then there's independent candidates as well here and there.
Well, we have a handful.
Our last election, the Conservative Party split up. They didn't do well at all.
Gotcha. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, they got skinned. It was really, really bad. Even now, where I live, most people vote Conservative, but the Conservatives are in a really bad state, if you ask me, because they don't have anyone running the party that everyone believes in. They lost some of the really powerful players, and the guy that they have now, his name's Peter O'Toole. I don't know anybody who votes Conservative who says, "Oh yeah, no, O'Toole, he's going to fix things up." I just, I stay out of that argument, but I don't know people used to say, you know, Stephen Harper, oh, no, that guy, get him in and he's going to make some changes. He's going to do some things. But I just don't hear people saying that about Peter O'Toole. And it's sad because the Conservatives are the main opposition to the Liberal Party. And I personally don't care for the direction that the Liberal Party has taken this country. So although I don't think I'm even going to vote next time, honestly. I have my own, you know, conscientious objector reasons for that. But, and I don't necessarily need to share them here, but, you know, people say, well, I will share them here. Because people say, if you don't vote, you don't have a right to complain. But I say, if you don't vote, I think this was Doug Stanhope actually said this, but I agree with it. If you don't vote, you're the only person who has a right to complain. Look what you guys did. What's going on here? You know, I didn't do this.
Yeah.
You guys screwed it up.
I didn't sign up for this. I didn't, you know, this. That's a good point. That really,
yeah,
because honestly, I mean, I that actually sounds more valid than the reciprocation that you first said of, well, unless you vote, you don't have a voice. Well, it's like, well, once you vote, you kind of commit yourself to whatever that person does in a sense before they do it.
Yeah, and I came up with this years ago. Is you are making yourself personally responsible on a micro level for every single action taken by a soldier, every bullet that kills a civilian, every bomb that wipes out a marketplace and destroys a bunch of people that didn't need to die. If you are voting for that system that put it into place, and if you are paying even a micro fraction of the cost of what that bomb cost, if they're only getting a millionth of a cent from you, you still paid for that bomb. You know,
in a sense,
how little do you have to pay in an assassination to be held responsible for that assassination? If you threw even a single copper at it, you participated in it.
Mm-hmm. I got a question for you. What do you think about the use of children in propaganda?
Oh, I hate it. I hate it all the way across the board.
Yeah.
Because they're just using they are dehumanizing them.
Yeah. Greta Thunberg.
They're turning them from a living. Oh, yeah.
That was a big one.
I didn't care.
You want to talk about mind control and propaganda? Wow. That was gross. That was so gross.
You know, I checked out right around the time that she came on the scene as far as participating in that sort of thing. I used to sign petitions all the time. On a regular basis, I would sign petitions. I still get the emails in my inbox. Hey, you want to, you know, so-and-so is doing this. Do you want to sign a petition? And, you know, I still do on the ones I believe in. But when I heard that some young girl from the Nordic countries was going to sail across the Atlantic on this yacht, you know, all green power, and come to preach to us about the wonders of the new paradigm, I was like, okay, look, this is obviously, you know, you're yanking at somebody's heartstrings. And my heart might be a little too cold for that.
Well, you just, you see it for what
my heart might be a little bit too cold for that to work, but
yeah,
I just got out of it. And that's where I stopped signing petitions. I stopped getting on board with those things. I just checked out. I was like, nope, I'm out.
So in the early 90s, do you remember the little girl with Pepsi? She had little black curly hair, cute as a button.
Oh.
She would sing and dance and play the piano, and she did those Pepsi commercials. That blew up like no other. And now, I mean, that was a little bit less nefarious, but at the same time, they were using children as propaganda.
Absolutely. And just like I said earlier, I have never agreed with it. I've always thought that if you cute up a child so much that people can't help but go, oh, then you've lost me. this member of the audience does Homer's brain during the Big Brother interview. You know, why are you here to be a big brother, sir? Don't say revenge. Don't say revenge. Don't say revenge. Revenge? That's it. I'm out of here. Slam.
Yeah.
You know, that's me at that point. You know,
Right.
If you make a child impossibly cute, I'm going to stop paying attention.
Yeah, it's not.
I like.
Go ahead.
I like kids when they got, you know, I mean, I don't like a kid with a runny nose, but when they have runny noses, you know, that's at least a real child. You know, I like them with, you know, when they don't have manicures, you know, if they don't have an artistically placed bandage, you know, that was put there by a makeup artist, you know, like, that's what I like. I like a kid with little boys with grubby knees and little girls who scream, you know, like it's, give me back those cliches and the ones, you know, don't give me these little adults, you know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
sometimes it's cute. I used to laugh at the little girl who would you know, sit in the car seat and go off with her, you know, with her exaggerated eye rolls and whatever. I think her name was Mila on Facebook, you know. But I remember thinking, okay, so how many years left does she have of this gig?
Yeah.
What, 2.5? Like you're turning her into a performer before she can get out of her car seat on her own, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's and they not only that, I mean, it's been, I think cartoon characters were a big part of it too. I mean, that's been used for 100 years, I bet, in an advertisement, which I guess a mascot or a cartoon character isn't again as nefarious, but it's a way to tap into your psyche. It really is.
Yeah. Well, Bert the Turtle in Duck and Cover, totally a cartoon character.
Mm-hmm.
It starts off with in fact, even the words to the song that they were singing was dum 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 de dum dum dum. Like,
yeah, Joe Campbell.
I noticed that right off the hop too. Yeah.
And
they've used
the looking camel you ever saw
for that. He was the coolest looking camel you ever saw.
They took that camel.
You see a real camel, you're like, no thanks.
No.
Next, I like Joe.
Yeah, they took that camel and basically made him a character in the book The Outsiders. Made him a greaser.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he was cool as to be.
And so and it was so they could sell cigarettes to the greasers. You know?
They're just a younger generation period. I don't think Philip Morris gives a shit if you're 2 years old. Smoke away.
No, as long as you can hold it without burning down the house.
Yeah,
light up.
That's all. Smoke safely, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, Budweiser did it with the frogs too. Remember those cute little frog commercials that sold beer?
Yeah, how could you forget them?
Yep. And then the t-shirt.
I'm not going to repeat it.
Right.
I'm not going to repeat the line, but as soon as you said the frogs, I was like, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I even start to have the cartoons start, or the commercials start playing through my head as soon as I even think about it. Right? They did a good job.
So what's a person do to separate from all this without going nuts?
That's a really good question. You know, like for myself, I just started recognizing it. You know, I went back, I watched, I binge watched I Love Lucy to kind of see, that's where I first, you know, really noticed that it was in a lot of the shows that we watch as well. And once you start to see those tactics and see those techniques, then I guess it comes back to what I was saying, I guess, in our last video too. Teach your children about it. Yeah. Take that time to teach your children and say, hey, you see what they're trying to teach you here? You see this other message that's here? You know, yeah, we can laugh at what's going on in the show, but you see this other thing that they're telling us about.
Yeah.
You want to watch that because you want to make sure that message doesn't change into something that we don't want to be doing.
Yeah. That's something I'm really proud of my kids. They have picked up on a lot of that. I would show them stuff when they were younger, but I think a lot of it they picked up on their own. I really did. And my oldest, they'll be 18 soon, and they're a lot more. I would like to say they were a lot more aware than I was at that age. I mean, they're pretty sharp. They pick up on the bullshit pretty quickly. It's awesome. Proud parent moment.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah, but if you were showing them those things earlier on, then they had a bit of a head start in the game too, didn't they?
Yeah, that, and yeah. I mean, I'm sure. I think my dad had a little bit to do with that too. I mean, he's pretty aware and plants seeds, I should say. Best thing you can do for a child is plant the seed.
I mean, I was 36 before I watched that I Love Lucy and started noting those things, and I was 30 before I started watching Duck and Cover and Is He the Communist? So, you know, even with a late start, I was able to pick up on it. But if you teach them earlier about how to spot the bullshit, and I think that's what's going to have to happen, is like there's a lot of people who buy the bullshit and they suck it down and they love it. But if you can teach even just a small group to not buy the bullshit and to not give into it, then they're going to be the leaders of the next generation, because they're going to be able to see through the bullshit, and they're not going to be the sheep. They're not going to be following the ass of the person in front of them.
Yeah.
They're going to be the ones saying, hey, where are we going, and are we there yet?
Yeah. Yeah, that's literally the best possible thing we can do with the younger generation, is just teach them what you can't force anything, but what you can do is you can plant a seed and you can teach them what's going on. It's up to them to act, but most of the time, once you wake up, you start thinking, okay, I'm not doing this. This is not for me.
And I think when it comes to helping adults recognize it as well, we have to do the same thing, but we just have to be a little bit more careful about it, and we have to make our observation on the subject just a little bit more clever, a little funnier rather than preachy, and try to get people to notice those things.
I agree. I do. For sure. Well, I'm probably getting close to running out of a little bit of time here.
Yeah, I was thinking it's probably time to shut her down here as well. So I guess I'll close out here. If you like what we're talking about and you want us to be making more videos like this, please like, share, subscribe, comment, click the subscription bell, all that stuff. If you want to see these the clips that we're talking about, I'm going to put the notes or the links in the show notes, and I'm gonna try to be a little bit more organized with that from here on out, because I know I appreciate that when I see it on other people's videos. As far as what we should do about this, I think Logan and I just went over it, is just try to educate people. Take the time, respect them, try to be funny. Humor is one of our best tools that we have to get across to people. I mean, even when it comes back to the Budweiser frogs were kind of funny, and that's why we all remember them, and that's why we cared about them. And so, yeah, just let's get out here, and it's time when a lot of people, you can't see them smile. Let's try and make them smile and watch for it to show up in their eyes. Thanks a lot for coming on and chatting with me here, Logan. It's been just an amazing experience once again, and hope to have you on again soon.
Hey, I
hope everybody else
has
an awkwardly awesome day. Yeah, it was. I find you really bring a lot to the show, and I really appreciate it. So,
well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I really do love this. It's awesome.
Awesome. Well, on that note, I'm just going to say to everybody else, I hope you have an awkwardly awesome day. Remember that God loves you, and so do I. Logan probably does too.
Absolutely.